Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to our discussion today. We are going to talk about a variety of things in relation to energy justice, equitable transitions, and also community rights. And it will be very important for me to hear your side or your experience in regards to this. My name is Nasanga Claire. I am the moderator today. And maybe if you could briefly introduce yourself so that we could get to know you better before we start our discussion today.
Hello, it's a pleasure to be part of the interview today. Discuss more about the just transition and energy justice. So my name is Otim Geofrey. I'm a frontline environment defender and climate justice advocate from Uyatu community, and also a youth leader who has been involved in various grassroots activities related to climate awareness.
Thank you for that introduction about yourself. I'm going to be referring to you by your second name or surname or team because I like the power that our surnames hold. I also like to be addressed by my surname, that is Nasanga. So, Otim, according to statistics, they show that over 60% of communities in the sub-Saharan Africa are living without electricity or are under the energy burden. So I wanted to ask you specifically what communities bear the heaviest energy burden and how is that measured?
Thanks so much for the question, moderator. It's really something good to relate with the current reality in my community. If the statistics are indicating that over 60% of the population are facing the challenge of energy poverty. So this is self-evident in my community, but in Uganda as well, annually we lose over 13,000 people due to energy injustice issues that include exposure to indoor air pollutants. Yeah, but from what I've seen in my community of Buyatu, the people who face the biggest energy burden are the vulnerable or poor people, especially those living in informal settlements, where in my community, example, we have Thailand, which is part of Zone 1, and Giza Giza. So people here live in informal settlements where they have access to unhealthy fuels like firewood and charcoal that they normally use for cooking purposes within the area. And this is not only costly, but also unhealthy for their lives in the long run. So to me, the energy burden is about what cost goes into energy and what type of energy is being used and how safe and reliable it is for the people.
That was an interesting submission, but I would like to follow up or have you to share more or elaborate on what you meant by what cost goes into the energy, what type of energy, and how reliable or safe the energy is. Could you enlighten maybe for another person or a policymaker to understand better what you mean by that in relation to the energy burden?
So from what I can explain about the statement, what cost goes into energy is like how much do these families spend in accessing energy, like women-led households. What amount do these women incur for accessing the energy or accessing the charcoal and the firewood? So you find currently the charcoal is very expensive in my community, so the cost is somehow very high where a sack, a 50-kilogram sack, is about 90,000 to 100,000 shillings. Then about the type of energy, still goes back on the which type of energy the women-led household or the community uses. So in the types, there is clean energy and then the unhealthy traditional fuels. So clean cooking solutions like solar cook stoves, electric pressure cookers have to be adopted. So with this, they are somehow currently costly, but then they can be put on subsidy, and then people can easily afford them. So with the type of energy, it's just trying to elaborate on what type of energy. Still, it has to be safe and reliable. With the safety part of it, the energy should involve less emissions or less exposure of smoke, yeah, to the user. And then on the reliability, it has to be available. At what time does it take when using this energy? So it has to save the people's time and then also be reliable within the community where it has to be accessible. Yeah, hubs have to be the selling points of this energy source. So that is the accessibility, reliability, and safety part of the energy that the community has to use.
So let's move on to the next question. We have had a lot of projects being brought into communities without actually them being broken them down to the communities to understand them on their own level, to understand how they could benefit, to also get permission or seek permission from these communities to let them start such projects in their areas. So in regards to that, what does meaningful community consent and benefit sharing look like in practice?
For me, meaningful community consent is more than just calling people to attend meetings and making them sign papers. It means involving the community from the start, communicating things in a language they understand, and also listening to their issues and concerns. So when it comes to the benefit sharing part of it, community that is involved should see evident and real solutions or impact within the community. For example, question of local jobs for the youth in the community. If the project is related to clean energy, then we have to see access and affordability to the energy solutions. And then the project should also support the community, yeah, in other local projects.
You have talked about community consent, whereby it's not just about bringing papers for people to sit and sign during meetings. Personally, I have been among members that have signed various consent forms that are brought in by researchers. But when you realize these consent forms are always brought in languages that are too technical for us or the people in the community, they're always in English, and sometimes we just sign just to get over with it because you don't really understand. And also the fact that they could promise the people in the community something small like small bread or a drink. So how could this be improved so that communities really actually understand what is going on? Because consent forms are brought in always, but people never know what they're signing or they never know what they're getting into.
To me, this goes back to the aspect of respect. So when involving communities in projects, the forms are brought for these people or participants to sign. But then the challenge is that they don't know what the message in the form portrays about. So information on the consent forms, to me, has to be communicated in the local language of the participants that are taking part in this project so that they can easily understand what are they signing and how is it going to benefit them in the long run. And then when it comes to the small things that they always receive these participants with, like the snacks, of course, this is a logistical part of it, but these things are necessary. Yeah, just that people always have to keep on being involved in these projects so that they can understand them. Challenge is that projects come on short notice, and most of the time they don't involve the local stakeholders like the youth councillors, the local LC1 chairpersons. So these people are there to provide support and ensure that the participants are confident while they are taking part in these trainings. So to me, I think the languages have to be transferred into the local languages on the forms, and then communities have to be continuously involved in the project and other activities.
Following up on the consent, so now the communities have understood what the project is about. They have signed the consent forms, they are in this, and they know what they're benefiting from the project. What commitments do you believe that developers should make before, during, and after the construction?
To me, I think project developers should take responsibility at every stage of the project development. Before the project, the developers should engage the community through the local leaders and have to be transparent, where they have to conduct environmental impact assessments. Then, during the project, part of it, they have to conduct the assessments where things like energy efficiency have to be considered. Green buildings or roofs have to be considered. So the developers have to conduct assessment for flood risks and climate change so that communities don't bear the burden where these projects are being set up. Then, then also during the projects, the developers have to respect the community land. The people, they should ensure that they reduce on pollution and then also involve the local community through the local jobs for the youth to see that the community is benefiting. And then after the project, developers often have a tendency of conducting short-term projects and they run off. So it should be about long-term responsibility. So they have to follow up and see that their projects are actually benefiting the community and together find ways of sustaining the projects with the community local stakeholders.
So, Otim, you've talked about something that I was actually going to talk about in the next step of our discussion. These developers of these projects tend to always make those short-term projects and disappear after that, as you said. Most times they make these commitments and promises to the community. They promise them heaven and earth. They promise them the green jobs. They promise them to benefit from the projects, and they promise them that their environment will not be impacted. But after all they are done, or after they are done with the work that they are doing with the project, they tend to just run off and never fulfill any of these commitments. So how best do you think we can go about this to prevent history from repeating itself? Because we can't keep on doing the same cycle of them taking the consent, giving us the promises, and still nothing is done.
When these project developers are conducting data related to health and pollution within the community, it should be conducted with respect. First of all, the people in the community need to know why is the data being collected and how will this data help them in the long run. So during data collection, people have to also be involved. Yeah, so it's like some of the youth representatives can be involved so that they can easily build trust together with these people who are conducting the data. Recently, I was conducting an air quality monitoring activity within my community using air beams, and I had to involve the local stakeholders. Yeah, where I reached out to the LC1, recommended me to the youth counselor, who joined me together to conduct this activity. So people have to be involved within the community, and then their privacy has to be considered. This goes back to the consent part of it. So people always share views during data collection, but their privacy has to be considered. Where if someone says, I don't want my photo or video to be somewhere, or my information, then that has to be respected. Yeah, so for advocacy purposes, the data should be simplified. It should be made simple that even a local resident or youth representative can easily understand it. So it should be framed in a way when the data collectors have shared the data back. So they also have to share the results back together with the community. And when the data comes back, it should be simplified, where a youth can easily understand it, or a local leader, and use it to also demand for change or hold key stakeholders accountable. So the data becomes evidence, and then action turns into awareness.
That is a very crucial step and discussion in regards to developers' promises. They should have some consequences in case they do not fulfill what they promise. I think we should really put that into action. And moving forward from that, I wanted to ask you, because they always carry out health assessment on the impact the projects will have on the environment, the impact they will have on the community, or the people as a general. How can data on health and pollution be collected ethically and be used for advocacy?
So the air quality monitoring activity I conducted in my community, the results were very simple and in a way that someone within the community could also use it easily. And in fact, I concluded the activity when people have understood it, how they are contributing through ecocide actions. But then the overall goal of the activity was to assess of course, the air quality, but then also inspire behavior change within the community. Because there is a saying that water is life, but then air is also life. So with that aspect, I had to conduct the air quality monitoring activity in the community and to evidently support the saying that air is life. So I had to conduct evidence-based data. So I was using an air beam 3 monitor. I involved key local stakeholders. The youth councillor was on board with other few youth whom I was conducting the data within the community. And key findings were in areas that had green cover. For example, I reached out to schools, and within the school, this school had trees, it had green cover, it had an urban garden. So tracking the air quality around the school, it was convincing. And the key pollutant that we focused about was particulate matter, 2.5. So the levels of air quality in the school were somehow convincing and healthy to the students and people around the area compared to, so the data that I got in the school, the particulate matter averages were around 6 to 12 cubic mass per cubic meter. So you see that the air quality within the school was convincing compared to the one outside the community, where I had to reach out to the informal settlements, the two zones, Thailand and Giza Giza. Data was really, it was devastating. Yeah, people in this community cook using traditional fuels. They normally burn waste within their area, and then the bad smell from the drainage channels that are also polluted made the results devastating, and air quality levels were unhealthy for the sensitive groups, the persons with disabilities, the elderly, the pregnant mothers. So with this, we try to compare. So I conducted it in a way that I had to ensure regional balance. So I conducted it throughout the whole zones, and then I compared the data. What zones needed urgent interventions, where we had to do the awareness with the local leaders. So that was the activity. So we tried to relate with the air quality levels, and then later on, of course, during the activity, it was interactive because I had to reach out to the hotels and then the schools and then the roadsides. So I was moving everywhere, and people were giving me their views. People asking, why are you collecting this data? And then how will it be important to us? So that's when I had to explain to them, cooking using charcoal contributes this to this, and other key contributing factors, so like burning waste. Yeah, so that was how the data was conducted, and that's how I was able to get the results about the air quality levels within my community.
That is quite inspiring, the work that you carried out in the various communities around you. And it's very important that you let them know what could be the cause of the various air quality that they are facing and the importance of having the green cover, because trees are very well known for being good carbon sinks. And I would really love to see how we could replicate that assessment in various communities around us so that they are also aware of that. So maybe we shall look into that further. And following on that, could you share an example where energy justice shifted a project's design or location, and what's changed? We are tired now. We have heard about the effects and impacts of these community projects by the developers. So now we want to hear on some good news on where you've ever seen maybe action or justice be achieved in a community where the project is being installed.
From what I've seen in my community, when community residents get involved into projects, things actually work out compared to when they are not involved. So example is recently in 2024, we had a green energy project within my community. But before the project, we had to follow the expertise idea at first, where the expert was telling us to just conduct the project on short term. But then after reaching out to the local leader, we found out that there were two urgent areas needed where the project had to be conducted specifically, compared to the location where the project implementers wanted the project to be implemented. So by strategically involving this local leader, we were able to see that he directed us or recommended us to where best the project was supposed to be implemented. And we saw that people in the area where I recommended us to specifically were facing energy injustice. And this was relating to the project because it was bridging TVET skills, yeah, in the clean energy workforce. So we got to see that briquettes were distributed in the two specific regions that the local leader had recommended us to, and actually change was evident because most of the people adopted to the briquettes, and then also the clean cook stoves were distributed. So to me, energy justice helps us shift the projects from expert-driven ideas to actual solutions that work on ground in the communities.
It's good to know that there are places which are receiving energy justice, although this is on a small scale and we wanted to reach out to various communities out there. But it's a good start to know that yes, it's happening out there. And I would like to ask the next question following on that. How does air quality, heat islands, and energy insecurity intersect with race, class, and gender?
To me, the poor and vulnerable are the key people that face the heaviest energy burden when it comes to the class level. These people are poor, surviving on few income sources, and this makes it hard for them to access the clean cooking solutions compared to the upper class people who have money and can easily buy these clean cooking solutions. So when it comes to gender, the women-led households face the heaviest burden when it comes to air pollution and still energy injustice. These women-led households use the charcoal and firewood for cooking. That exposes them to indoor air pollutants like particulate matter that is very unhealthy for their lives. So when it comes to race still, it's the vulnerable communities that bear the burden of to heat islands where in these areas the green cover is small and scarce. So the areas are exposed to hotter temperatures from the sun, leaving them vulnerable to the urban heat island effect. Yeah, so to my own understanding, that's how air quality, energy injustice intersects with race, class, and gender.
Well, Otim, following up on what you told us about how the poor are the most impacted and how they cannot afford most of the energy that is given to them, and also the fact that the energy burden remains severe across much of the global south and millions lack access to renewable or affordable energy. And with that, could you tell us what policies or financing tools most effectively correct historic harms? Because we already see the harm has been done and it's a great burden for the people.
To me, when it comes to the energy justice aspect, policies that correct the historical harms should be the policies that make clean energy accessible and affordable, but also relating to the current needs in these grassroots communities related to still energy. So when it comes to the current policies, most of them, to my own aspect, look outdated, where some of the things were indicated or commitments made some are outdated and not relating with the current realities. Example is the renewable energy policy of 2007. It needs reviewing. Yeah, time has passed ever since it was passed on and adopted. So we need policies that can be reviewed relating to the current community needs. And I think such policies can somehow correct the historical harms and try to put things in order. Then when it comes to the financing tools, the financing has to reach grassroots enterprises or grassroots youth innovations. Financing should not just favor big companies. Most of the youth are trying to see how they can make these clean cooking technologies accessible by opening up hubs in their communities. But these youth movements or enterprises, they lack funding. Most of the finance comes, but it's allocated to the biggest companies and organizations. So to me, I think when finances come at the grassroots and find out this young entrepreneur who is promoting the briquettes, I think that will help shift the perspective and correct the historical harms related to energy injustice.
Moving from that, we have noticed that when communities upgrade to cleaner energy, there is tendency of properties going high, rent going high, the items that they purchase getting high, normally pushing up the low-income earners or people of the communities. So with that, how do we avoid green gentrification as neighborhoods electrify? And could you maybe explain green gentrification to our viewers so that they could understand it more?
So when it comes to green gentrification, in my own understanding, this is a situation where an area is developing at a faster rate. Either it might be in energy transition, can be or infrastructure development, or so it's somehow related to urbanization at a high rate or industrialization at a faster rate within the community. So it's really true when areas, of course, keep on developing at a faster rate, the cost of living increases, and people, the indigenous or local residents of the area, often find it hard to survive in such an area. Their cost of living increases, where things like access to electricity and then things like access to transport. So there is an increment in such aspects. But then how best can we ensure that these people are not displaced to other areas? They are not affected by the development of areas. So we can involve these local people in planning for these projects, because green gentrification, I think it comes back to the project developers. So they should involve these people in planning, where to see that people at least can get the jobs and then be able to adapt to the developing or changing economic aspects within their community. And then when it comes to energy, of course, it has to be made still. It has to be on a, how can I phrase it? It has to be on a constant amount. So prices have to remain affordable and accessible for these people so that they are not affected by the energy burden or increase in energy costs or electricity. So that's how I can best explain green gentrification and how the people can be supported to see that they are not displaced to other areas but still remain in the areas and are favored by green gentrification.
Thank you, everyone that has joined in and listened to our conversation. And I would also like to thank our expert today, Otim, that has given us all the valuable insights in regards to this. And the fact that he has talked about how the energy justice is not just about the energy, it's about the people, it's about the communities, it's about the place. And it's very important that it's co-designed with these various communities, that they are not left out, that they are part of the discussion, they are part of the projects being put in place, they are part of or working in such places that are being put in place. And also the fact that their courses should be taken, and also the fact that energy should be affordable, it should be reliable, and also again it should be friendly to the environment.
Well, it's been a pleasure to my side to be part of this wonderful interview that clearly brings out the intersection of environmental injustice, climate justice, and then the energy injustice part of it, where we've seen that there are still intersecting issues like financing, and we've seen that there are challenges that are somehow linked to lack of finance, then the governance structure issues, and then things related to accountability and reporting. So to me, I think the message I can give out to a young social entrepreneur there trying to fight for energy justice or advocate for climate justice is that let's not give up. Yeah, we should see that at least we do the best of advocacy. Let's keep on raising our voices to these policymakers to see that at least the policies that they are drafting, we are involved and the policies are favorable to our work. They might be financing policies or other policies related to energy and then the climate related shocks that we are facing. Because currently, like Kampala itself here in Uganda, we are facing three major climatic concerns. That is the floods, and then the urban island effect that brings the heat waves, and then water scarcity issues. So this is where the government has to put a focus on, not leaving behind the energy injustice. Yeah, energy is becoming a health aspect. Yeah, it's becoming an economic issue within our grassroots communities. So all I can say is that let's not give up, and then we need more support from the government side of it, because CSOs are trying hard, but then the government, we have some gaps there. So please, we request for your support. Always try to involve us in the planning processes and then the implementation and the monitoring part of it. Thank you so much.